go live so it like starts it. So well, welcome.
Definitely.
Yep. Welcome to Intercultural Spark, that show about the spark inside you that drives you to spark change in the world through mission-driven businesses and life projects. I am your host, Deanna Shoss, and we have a special Friday edition. Although I may like Fridays, it feels kind of relaxing, to kind of be on a Friday and having such a fun chat. And the reason I call it a fun chat, they all are, but oh my gosh, our guest today is just amazing. Her name is Ania Wysocka. She is the founder of the Rooted app, which is a panic attack and anxiety app, which now has over 1 million downloads in like 150 countries. It's amazing. And if that wasn't enough, if she didn't already like find this amazing app, she was one of British Columbia's 30 under 30. And that was just last year. And like she speaks 5 languages and she's an artist. And like, I'm going to stop talking because I'm going to get her on. So I hope that you thank you all for joining us. Remember, you can leave comments and ask questions in the chat. So let's get started with Ania. Hi, how are you?
Great. Thanks. Thanks for having me and for the lovely introduction.
Oh, my pleasure. And I want to talk about your app, but I just realized, how is it? So what is it? It's like you're learning Chinese, but it was Korean, Russian, Polish, English, and what was the other one?
Spanish.
And Spanish. Okay, so we
Spanish. Yeah.
overlap. I speak Spanish, French, and Portuguese.
Nice.
But how? Oh my God! So we have like 8 languages between us. That's go, Ania and Tiana.
Yeah, totally.
How do you speak so many languages, though? That's fascinating.
So why I grew up in different countries. I guess that's the
Okay.
real basis for it. So I'm Polish Canadian. So I grew up with English and Polish in the house. And then I moved to Korea. So that's why I learned Korean. And back in the day,
Ah.
my mom had said she loves the sound of Spanish. And so as a little girl, I was like, my mom will love me more if I speak Spanish. And I loved
Love
learning
it.
languages. So I literally went to a kiosk in Poland and bought a magazine to learn Spanish. So it was like Polish to Spanish. And
Oh,
then later
wow.
on in university, I actually did a term abroad in Guatemala and got to take more official Spanish courses. And then with Russian, a lot of my closest friends in high school were
Mhm,
Russian. And so in talking to their parents, and
mhm.
I always loved learning a language that has different characters than ours. And so a different alphabet. And so learning Cyrillic was really fun, and Korean. So yeah, that's the gist
Wow.
of it. And then Mandarin, now I'm learning because I just think it's incredibly useful, and another language where it's kind of, there's like a whole secret world behind those characters,
Mm.
as you're learning.
I see a parallel in terms of why and how you pursue different languages, being like, well, there's a need. Let me pursue that need. And it sounds like that's how your idea for the Rooted app originally happened. As you tell us a little bit about that. So you found a need that wasn't there. What happened? And then we'll go from there.
Yeah, so I was in my 4th year of university and I had a panic attack seemingly out of nowhere. And it was really difficult because the doctor had told me that everything was fine with me physically. So then I
Mhm.
was, just so confused. What is happening? Why do I feel so afraid? And I just didn't have the right resources with me. So I looked up different apps. I'm millennial through and through. I looked for an app first thing, and there's just really nothing out there. And then I looked for different books and resources and more academic resources. And those were really helpful. But then I found myself lugging around these books around campus because they kind of made me feel better knowing I had that information at hand. And
Oh,
I was like,
interesting.
okay, this makes so much more sense, or would make so much more sense if I just had this on my phone.
Mhm,
And that's how the idea of Rooted started.
mhm. So what I will point out, because oftentimes, so intercultural talk, we work a lot with non-digital natives. So people that are actually probably on their second half of their career and pursuing things. But I was fascinated by what you talked about because you were, oh my gosh, you had to have been like, so in your early 20s as a woman going into a field, creating an app, which tends to be male dominated. So
Mhm.
so that to me was the parallel, is trying to pursue something where you need to overcome or break into break into an industry that says, well, you don't look like us. What was that experience like?
I think the bulk of it was just that I wasn't taken super seriously at first.
Mhm,
A lot of people were just like, "Hey, this is going to be hard," and just kind of leave it at that. Like, good luck. And I don't know that my idea really was convincing to others until I had
mm,
already had the following and had the users. And really, it just probably took longer for me to convince people than it would the average other person
mhm,
in tech. Yeah, most recent years it's been a lot better, but at the beginning there was a lot of just sort of, yeah, letting me know that I'm doing the wrong thing.
mhm.
Yeah.
Well, that is fascinating though. The you decide to do it. How do you go about doing it? So it sounds like you went when you say I didn't have the followers. So it sounds like, I mean, there's two things you need. You need followers. In the book world, there's this magic number of 10,000. Like if you've got 10,000 followers somewhere, then you can often like people will then listen to you. At least in book world, that's true. But also, I understand apps can cost like hundreds of $1,000s to develop. So so talk a little bit about that. It sounds like you went to build sort of a community first, and then what were you sharing with that community to build it?
Yeah, so I use the word followers because it's more universal, but specifically I
Okay.
meant users for
Okay.
my app specifically. So it
Oh,
wasn't until
okay.
my app had already been established and now we passed the 1 million download mark that I'm
Mhm.
hearing from more people from back then that were like, "Oh, hey, by the way, sorry that I said those things at the beginning." That's what I meant about that.
Yeah.
But in terms of actually starting, I've always loved to draw and paint. So it was really about teaching myself how to take that from the canvas and onto the
Mhm.
screen. I actually designed all of the graphics, all of the wireframes by myself, just really learning online how
Mhm.
to do stuff like that. And then with the developer, I certainly did not have hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Mhm.
But I did, I guess, take that risk in using my savings to work with a student, very little savings, by the way, because still a university, like just out of university age, did not have much going for me in terms of that financial security. But I did just choose to use that on the first version of Rooted. And
Mhm.
I worked with a student developer. So that's really important too. And I think that
Mm,
will,
mhm.
well, it's both empowering because obviously the costs are less, but then you need to
Oh.
delays, bugs, a lot of other adventures that associate with that. There's that saying, right? You get what you pay for.
Mhm.
And that's
Sure.
not a slight to the student I worked with. Like he was awesome, but I just, he was doing it for the first time. And so for him, it was a whole new world too. And we were kind of working through these kinks together. And since, yeah, I think finding a developer, that's been a process. Like there's been people who have been there at the beginning, but then stopped. And I've worked with quite a few now.
Mhm. But it sounds like then you didn't wait, which I love that though. You didn't wait
Yeah,
until
no.
like, because a lot of people will say, "Oh, it's an app, you need all this money." You didn't wait until you had it all. You said, "I'm just gonna try it." And I have to laugh is while you're telling us this really important thing when you say you get what you pay for. That was actually me trying to remove, Ron from the stream, and actually I just took you out for a minute.
Oh.
So
No worries.
Um, you know what? Can you just take 1 second? Because I realized I know you. You were actually on my I have a client, the Juniper Center, who does a show on normalizing conversations about mental health. That's how we met. You were on that show. What I realized I didn't ask you the basic question that our, listeners and viewers would probably love to know is I forgot to ask you, like, what does the app do? How do people use it? That would be helpful.
Yeah. So Rooted is an app for anxiety and panic attack relief. It's a mobile app on both the App Store and the Google Play Store, and it comes with a number of different lessons on anxiety management. It comes with tools for immediate relief for if you're actually having a panic attack. It also has different tools and resources for more of that long-term management. So breathing, journaling, visualizations as opposed to
Mhm,
meditations because people with anxious thoughts, it's kind of hard to sit in silence for extended periods of time. So it's all of these kind of resources and tools melded into one.
mhm. Okay. And so actually our friend, I love this. So Brianna shares, going back to our earlier conversation, Brianna shares that she speaks English. Brianna, don't
Amazing.
forget
So
body language. You have to count body language as a language too.
yeah.
Um, so Brianna also asks, did you learn more about what to include in your app based on what your users needed? Or did you find that you learned more in your own experience? Like what was that research as it's evolved?
Yeah, so I guess the unique thing about Rooted is because I didn't have that MBA background, I didn't go into it surveying and asking users what they needed. It was really based off my experience and what I felt I needed that would work for me. And that's how I originally launched. And
Mhm.
then that was in late 2019 in January. But then fast forward a year from then, 2019 and sorry, yeah, 2017 in January was the pre-launch. 2019
Mhm.
um, in yeah, so that was the major launch. And so by that time, I had enough users that I was able to gather a lot of user feedback and plug in more tools into the app. So when you first started, I started with that main panic attack tool. And that's
Mhm.
for immediate relief because that's really what I felt was lacking, just a really simple tool with clean design to get right into it.
Do you have
And
the panic button
users,
on your is there a panic button on is that just on the app, or can you see that on your website as well?
it's
Oh, is that Rooter?
easier to see on the app, but yes, it's this one here. So basically, there's two different ways to finish a panic attack. You either face it head on or find comfort quickly.
Mhm.
And it's based on lots of lessons and logic in the app, but essentially, it will provide you different prompts that are true and calming, and you can kind of choose your own path.
Okay.
And so that was the first tool that had launched. But then fast forward that year of gathering user feedback, users were sharing that, hey, this I use this for panic attacks, but I would also use this if there is a daily tool that I could use. And so that's when the breathing tool and the visualizations
Okay.
and the journaling came in. So a bit of both to answer that earlier question.
Mhm.
But I definitely started without any formal surveys. And it was really interesting because even though I started without that formal survey, I kind of built it for myself. And then the demographic using it was females in my age range at first.
Mhm.
And so
Okay.
that almost was like it naturally happened. But, we also have people that are senior citizens. A lot of senior citizens use Rooted. I get a lot of great feedback, both from their community members and their children sometimes, just letting me
Mhm.
know that they're grateful that their parents can use it. And we also have very young Rooted users, 8
Mhm.
years old, that they use it with their parents, and we also get
Oh,
feedback from them.
interesting.
So it's a very wide range, but the majority are females in my demographic. So I thought that was really interesting.
Mhm. Well, the other thing I understand is that not only so you studied international relations. Did you study graphic design and art, or that was just something you enjoyed?
That's something I enjoyed. I picked up after school.
Okay. So and
Yeah.
now has formed kind of the whole personality of the app. But,
Mhm.
people might say, "Well, Anya, okay, you live this in real life, but isn't there a need for, let's say, clinicians or kind of mental health professionals?" And so how have you partnered, which it's a leading question, I know you have. How have you partnered with mental health professionals to actually inform the content of the site?
Yeah, so before I publish anything, I ask for mental health professionals to review it and kind of give me their heads up if there's anything that needs to be changed. And that's before I published Rooted at all back in
Mhm.
2017. And yeah, I mean, the whole thing about Rooted is that it's meant to be a symbiotic tool that you
Mhm.
use with counseling, with medication as needed. Always check in with your doctor to make sure that, that sometimes the symptoms of panic attack can mimic other conditions. So we always recommend users to check in with their doctors.
Mhm.
But once you have the clear, and kind of like in my situation where my doctor was like, okay, you're okay. And I was like, I'm so not okay.
Mhm.
That's when a tool like Rooted is super
Mhm.
helpful, and combining it with counseling is great.
Mhm. Sorry, just that thing of "you're okay," that drives me crazy. Like, there has to be a better symbiotic relationship between mental and physical health because both go hand in hand, and you're not the first person where a doctor and you can tell me the race and ethnicity and gender of your doctor. I have a vision in my head. Tell me, and I'll see if it matches. But this idea that well, go ahead.
Yeah, it was a white
It was
male.
a white male. I
White
kn
older male,
okay,
yeah.
sorry to
Yeah.
make I apologize because I have many white men that are in my life and also that I serve, but it's just you look at that assumption where he looks at this and I'm gonna say girl because you were a teenager maybe at the time, but he looks at this young girl and just says, "Oh, you know what? You'll be okay." He probably told you to, like, sleep more or something, or just, "Oh, you're fine." And the thing is if you have physical symptoms, you're not okay regardless of what is contributing to it. Like, it's all part of just health. And to just blow basically what he was saying is, I don't know how to fix this, and so I'm going to tell you not to worry about it. That drives that that's just not right, I don't think.
Yeah, it was really unfortunate. Looking back after years since then, I'm realizing how different my healing path could have been had I had those right resources, which again is why I created
Mhm.
Rooted. It's really amazing to see some people write to me and they say, "Hey, I had my first panic attack last week. I thought I had to quit school, work. I was done.
Mm.
And then I found your app and I've been able to rationalize it and understand what's going on. And I'm already back at school or work." Like to see
That's
messages like
great.
that is just like, that's why I made Rooted, because for me, it was so
Mm.
debilitating that I had to quit certain things in my
Mm.
life. Then when
Wow.
I had the resources, I was like, oh my gosh, if I had this,
Mhm.
I wouldn't have had to quit those things. I could have been
Mm.
further along in my career. All these what ifs, which also isn't something we should dwell on, but it is a huge
Mhm.
motivator for me to
Sure,
have
sure.
created Rooted.
Well, and it sounds like then you get a lot of interaction and feedback. With 1,000,000 people, how many messages you must get messages all the
A
time, I would
lot.
think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the coolest part of it.
Mhm.
Definitely.
So, I hope I'm not putting this looks like someone who might be Russian. Do you know this per I don't know, is this do you can you read this? Tech.
It
I
says
hope
Sofia Muratova, that's the name,
okay.
but I don't know what Tech is.
So, hopefully she's saying, "Wow, this is amazing." We'll just pretend. "It's
Yeah,
amazing technology, and you're doing an incredible job." And Brianna says, "Exactly. It's so frustrating for a doctor to say you're okay when you feel like you're having a literal heart attack." Yeah.
yeah,
So, definitely
totally
not
agreed.
right on that. Um, so so here's another thing which is fascinating because anybody watching you right now is probably thinking on top of I could be like your fan club. I know you have a ton because 'cause I'm like, on top of her languages, on top of like her graphics and her app and everything else, you're very you're very natural and at ease on camera. I
Oh,
understand that was actually not always the case, and this is almost even new putting yourself forward. Tell us about that a little bit.
yeah, so I think it was the case before my panic attacks.
Mhm,
I actually in high school, I did a bit of modeling, and it was just like I got comfortable in front of the camera. It was lots of fun in Korea. Then after my panic attacks, I totally wanted to hide away from everyone and everything. I actually changed professions. I thought I would do some
mm,
things that involved more public speaking, but then I had
mhm,
to totally just nix those plans. And I ended up, when I taught myself graphic design, that was a large part of it, is that, I can have clients and just be online and not need to actually go and meet with people and do the things.
mm,
So
mhm,
it took a lot of healing and overcoming the panic attacks and getting used to speaking with, you know, groups and putting my name out there and being out there.
mhm,
Again, it felt very vulnerable. And so I think the reason why I didn't feel comfortable with that even as I was healing with Rooted is because I didn't want then to be my label to be like the panic attack
mhm.
girl or
Yep,
something. I
sure.
wanted to be known for all of me and not just that part of me that ended up being really debilitating for me. So that's, yeah, a bit about that. And then I think, Deanna, you may have seen there's this app developer spotlight a couple weeks ago in the US. So I thought, wow, how
Oh.
ironic. I used to not even send my picture when journalists asked me for photos of myself for
Mhm.
articles. I would send photos of Ron, the app mascot. And then a couple weeks ago in the US, my story was out for everybody to see. And it was a lot, but it was also way better.
Mhm.
I'm feeling a lot better about it these days.
Mhm. And by the way, just I put the website back again because that is one iteration of Ron. He's adorable.
Mhm.
He's wait, what was your inspiration for thinking about Ron? He's got those sharp teeth, so maybe that little bite of anxiety, but he's so cute.
Exactly. Yeah. So the idea is that, we can kind of befriend our anxiety in a way. And so you
Mhm,
want it to be this monster that there's some iterations of him that look a little scarier, which anxiety can obviously feel super scary and be very
yeah.
scary. But then I also wanted him to be friendly enough that you can kind of see his flaws and you're like, okay, this doesn't have to have a whole hole on me, this
Mhm.
this
Sure.
monster. There's actually ways for me to get to know him or them and kind of
Mhm.
befriend them as well.
Mhm. It's interesting when you talk about I find that really hard. So you said I don't want to be known as the anxiety person, but even in let's say in a conversation like this where I just want to know all the fabulous things you do, but you can't get to that without kind of giving just a bit of your story and how you found it because that's what makes it so personal. How is
Mhm.
that for you? Because I find that hard. People have things in their life, you know, especially with social media and everything now, we have these public personas that we're able to curate. And oftentimes people want to not show the parts that maybe that maybe aren't the things they would lead with. I'm using language that I don't want to apply to you because I'm saying things that you might be embarrassed of or afraid of, or maybe you think people will will judge you or something. So now you're in a position where you're just leading with it all. How does that feel?
Yeah, I think that at first the reason why I didn't want to is
Mhm.
because, growing up, the positions and the opportunities that I wanted in life, they weren't filled by people that struggled as much as I did. And so in my mind, I was like, okay, it goes back to that idea of, how we're talking a lot about representation now. And,
Mhm.
if you don't see those people in those seats, it's really hard to picture yourself there. And so I grew up being told that, that feminine energy isn't it's not a positive trait. And, any sort of mental health issue, like, shouldn't be talked about, should be
Right.
swept under the rug. And so it took a lot to kind of confront those stigmas that were taught to me, and then to embrace and learn that, hey, like, yes, this really crappy things happened to me, but it's still part of my story. And, I guess I feel more comfortable sharing it now, and it's just a part of me, and that authenticity is quite important to me. And so
Mhm.
I wouldn't be able to be as authentic unless I shared that part of me too. And I think that if people are very understanding, they will see me as more than the anxiety girl
Mhm.
anyway. But I'm also not ashamed to
Mhm.
be that
Mhm.
person now. So, I think that's a bit of that evolution of how I felt about it. And,
Mhm.
the society around us too is also destigmatizing it a lot more these days, which is
Yes.
great. Yeah.
Especially with so much mental health issues through
Yeah.
through the pandemic. But, what happens now is people are, I'm sure, I know I'm include me in the fan club, but also the emails that you get, people are in awe of you because you doing that, lets other people go, "Oh, that's okay. I can talk," like you find with people who send you emails, they can talk about this now. So, um,
Definitely.
can
Yeah.
you just I am interested and share as much or as little as you want on this. I'm just curious when people are successful business owners, like just the process of being a business owner because um you know, do you have a whole organization now because it's all online? Can you almost work by yourself? And then until recently, not only were you running this whole rooted app, you were also working full time and like creating digital marketing programs for like businesses across British Columbia. What the heck, Anya? What does, like, your day look like? How does this all work?
Yeah, so I guess going to what the day is like question, I do start every morning with time for myself. And I think
Mhm,
that's super crucial because, like you said, I'm involved in a lot of different projects, and it can
mhm.
be, you got to watch out for burnout. But I
Sure.
really try to walk the talk,
Mhm.
with Rooted, everything that Rooted says. I really try to live those qualities in
Mm.
my life. So I start my day with journaling.
Mhm,
I drink a liter of water, take my
mhm,
supplements, then I do my workout. And during my workout, I'm still trying to not look at my phone. I'm not looking at my email yet because
mhm.
that sets off a whole line of different emotions and
Of
things I have to do. And
anxiety.
I can't not think about my email once I look at it. And I also try to avoid social media. So I'll just use my phone for the Rooted app. So, like, breathing and
Mhm,
visualizations. And then it's only till after I've showered and had something to
mhm.
eat that I will then really get into my work. And there's different tricks that, we could do a whole
Mhm.
session on this of things that I've
Oh,
tried
for
to do to
sure.
kind of stay focused. But it's really having the email time, separating that out from the rest of my
Mhm,
task, and just really trying to find focus as much as possible. Like you mentioned, being a part of different projects, I just try to separate them as much as possible. So I
mhm,
try for there to not be overlap between the two. And but yeah, typically I would work
mhm.
all day and then have dinner with my partner and then work again.
Oh my
So not too much
god.
of a social
Are you
life.
serious? Wait, it's so funny. Usually, that's what people say, and then you get in their house, and it's like a disaster and not that because 'cause you're basically doing all the she's doing hello, listeners. She's actually doing all the things that are advised to do. Can I just ask, so, like, what time I'm trying to find an excuse as to why I don't do this, so I'm looking for, like, the catch in this. What time do you get up, and how long does it take to do your morning ritual?
Uh, if I'm doing a workout, then it's like a 40-minute workout,
Mhm,
20-minute journal, and then probably add on an extra 20 minutes to shower and eat, just something
mhm,
simple. But if I'm doing a run, I do like at least an hour run. And
mhm,
I also have this weird thing that I do that not a lot of people understand, but I love. I actually read or learn while I'm on the treadmill. So I'll have
mhm,
an
sure.
iPad set up, and I'll
Mhm,
have a nonfiction book because fiction is fun to read always. So for
mhm.
me personally, I don't need to be super focused. But for certain nonfiction, especially if it's a business book, I find that reading on the treadmill is so good because I can't have the distraction. I don't have distractions. I'm literally running and trying to keep up. So that's where I get some of my learning into. So I kind of
Nice. So you're
them.
doing all the things.
But not too early. I get up at like 6:30, 6:50. So
Okay.
it's not extremely early. There's some people who get up at like 4 a.m.
Well, that's what I was waiting for you to say. I was waiting for you to go, well, I get up at 4.
Yeah.
One thing I do though, because the journaling thing, oh my God, I can be crazy. Like I have to journal at least 4 mornings a week or else I can tell because I'll start getting a little bit, perseverating is what you do on different topics. I keep a journal and a lap desk under my bed. And luckily my husband gets up usually before me. So by the time I get up at like 6:30 or whatever, he's usually gone. That's what I do. I just grab the lap desk and the journal and start right then and there. And I share that one of the ways is because part of it, sometimes like you do your learning while you're on the treadmill. I mean, there is still only so many hours in a day and we have to figure out how do we make things work for us and around us. So, well, we are at, let me just see if this is, we have, so our friend from Russia is saying hello again. All right, Ania, we are at that point of the show where we do the flash exercise. All right, so this is the exercise of the day. I also work out. See, now the way that I trick myself into working out regularly is I got certified as a fitness instructor because if you're the teacher, you have to show up. So that was my way. That was my way of making
sure good life hack.
I get my exercise in. Exactly. Yes. So I love to do each week we do what I call the interpretive exercise of the day. I'm going to make me full screen for a second just so I can show the exercise. I'll bring you back on to do it with me. And then I'd love for you to guess why I picked that exercise related to our show today. Okay. So I'm just going to make me full screen for a second. This is an exercise that you can do at your desk. I invite you to do it with me. Actually, I can probably even do it. I'm going to do it seated. This exercise is called, I'm going to do it halfway. All right. If you do this exercise multitasking, I'm going to do it in a squat so that I'm the right height. So that means I've dropped my tail to knee height. So this is called the MAC. And what happens is one arm comes up in an anterior deltoid lift. That's the front of your shoulder. The other one comes up in an upright row. So it goes like this. It goes up and up. You can do this with weights up. So you're working your shoulders, stopping at shoulder height, come up and up. I'm going to bring Ania back and let her try this with me. All right. And at home, if you can do this, so again, seated in your chair or in a squat, you come up and up. There you go. You got it. It's called the MAC. That's from Les Mills Body, Body Pump. They do this one with weights. Why do you think I picked this exercise for you, Ania and Rooted?
Because it looks like a power pose of strength. And there are points in Rooted, and you get warrior points and survivor points. And there's images of Ron kind of looking strong. And I feel like this would be another good position for him to be in, like in an illustration.
Oh, it is. It's
Am I right?
I
might be off, but
so because it's interpretive aerobics, I like to think of it as like being the artist where you put something into the world and then people interpret it. I think that's a fabulous interpretation. Do it again with just your fingers. Here's what I was thinking, which is like, this is your exercise to push the Rooted panic button. Boom.
Right. Yeah.
Boom. You can push the panic button. It's right there.
Very true.
So that's how people can prep to to push the panic button. So this is so fabulous. Oh, there you go. Thanks. So it's literally a red button. And look at all those great pictures of Ron. So
yes. It's very hard to do it when you're not. Okay. Yeah. So using the rooter, there's a whole lesson on how to use the red button.
Fantastic. And there is, so again, it's available on the Apple Store or or Google Play. And there's a free version and then also a version that's a subscription version that gives you a little bit more resources. Actually, Brianna said your interpretation was fantastic.
Thank you, Brianna.
Thank you so much, Ania, for being on the show. This was just fabulous. You are amazing and so excited to see how much you're helping people. And here's the other great lesson with what you do is that through providing service, like by sharing your story and realizing that something didn't exist for this, it's that idea of, geez, how many people say, oh, someone should invent that? And you were like, I'll be someone, So just the fact that you did that, and now how many people you're helping through service is just amazing. So thank you so much. It was so delightful to spend time with you, and good luck with it. I hope everyone has a great weekend. Thank you everyone for joining live, and we'll see you next time on Intercultural Spark. Thanks.
Cheers. Thanks. Thanks for
Cheers.
your positive energy too, Deanna. It's great.
Oh, my pleasure. Bye-bye.